Thank you. First of all, I think it's very important that I tell you, you can get your parking ticket validated right outside before you leave tonight, so take care of that. Otherwise, you may run up about a $19 bill. We have special door prizes tonight, and they are autographed pictures of John Unitas and Raymond Berry. There's one for each table. Here's the way you figure it out. Look underneath your saucer, unless, of course, you've got coffee in it already. But look underneath your saucer and hold it up. If you have a dot on the bottom of your saucer, hold that saucer up, and a member of the board will pass through there and award you isn't that nice? One at each table. Hey, put that pen away down there. As one of the board members comes toward your table, be sure to raise your hand right up. Incidentally, while they're doing that, I would like to remind you that you probably see a lot of cameras and things here tonight. There's a good reason for that. This program is being videotaped by TKR Cable. It will be shown back in its entirety on Wednesday, November 13th at 8 p.m. on Channel 8. And then it'll be shown a couple of other times after that. So we do thank TKR Cable for that. Now, we have Little Leaguers that we want to honor first as soon as everybody gets their coffee cup taken care of there. Everybody get their prize? No, this lady right here needs one. Leon, right there. Right there. And back in the back. Okay, I think that takes care of it. Now, we have some very special guests we'd like to introduce tonight. These are young football players from various youth leagues around the area. And I know how proud mom and dad and uncles and aunts and grandpas and grandmothers are. But if you would just kind of hold your applause to the very end, there are only 12 of them. If you just do that, then we want to, because they're going to come up and get their picture taken with John Unitas, something that they'll have for a long, long time. So let's start out with the Oldham County Youth Football League. From the Pee Wee flag, Randy Smith. And if you would, just kind of hold on to your cameras until our photographer is done, and then you can snap as many as you want. John, you will stand there, right? No, he won't. From the Junior League, Brock Neal. And from the Oldham County Seniors, it's Jonathan Scarborough. You fellas be sure and stop now so you can get your picture taken here. Now from the, because he's not going to chase you, South Jefferson County Youth Football League, from the Pee Wee Flag Group, Christopher Miles. I'd like to see the flag that guy's playing with. The Junior League, Anthony Stallard. And from the senior group, Chad Reed. Now from the Muhammad Ali Youth Football League, Pee Wee flag, Juwan Spillman. Okay. Juwan, we're going to let you stand up here a little extra time, okay? Any of Juwan's relatives want to take a picture, they can do so while our photographer's loading up his camera. He's recruiting. That'll be a good one, number 7. From the juniors, Tommy Jones. And from the senior, Montrell Jones. From the Jefferson County Optimist Youth Football League, Pee Wee flag, Brian Thompson. Junior, Ryan Blackerby. John said he likes that haircut. And the senior, Cedric Knight. Check this guy out, John. He's a linebacker, too. Ladies and gentlemen, how about a big round of applause for all of these young men? You notice all the empty seats up here, and there's a reason, because the following high school student athletes will be honored later in the awards portion of the program, but we'd like to introduce them to you now. Please hold your applause on these until we finish. From Atherton High School, Stefan Harris. From Ballard High School, Adam Vall. That's okay, Mom. From Butler, Matthew Weiss. From Central High School, Jermaine Bradley. Now say hello to Dominic Oliverio from DeSales High School. Thank you, Dominic. From Doss High School, Josh Frith. From Eastern High School, Fred Reese IV. Fairdale High School, Mike Brown. Next, we'd like you to meet from Fern Creek, Doug Schneider. From Holy Cross, Brian Dews. From Iroquois, Thomas Ashby. Next is Mitch Netter from Jeffersontown. From Mayo High School, John Stammerman. That's Chuck Shupp. This is John Stammerman. From Manual High School, Greg Schartzer. You're welcome. Next is James Frank from Moore High School. From Oldham County High School, Bo Guest. From Pleasure Ridge Park, Brian Moore. From Seneca, William Hammond. From Shawnee, Andre Blasingame. From St. Xavier, Tendai Karasika. From South Oldham, John Thompson. From Southern High School, Billy Jones. From Trinity, Jeff Ralston. From Valley High School, Chris Farrell. Aaron Robinson from Wagner. And from Western High School, Kenny Kurtz, Jr. Also to be honored later in the program, the Frank Camp Award winner from Leslie County, Tim Couch. The walk-on award winners from the University of Kentucky, Carl Daly. And from the University of Louisville, Matt Conway. Now then, how about a big round of applause for all of them? Before we begin our dinner, it's customary to present the head table, and I will do that at this time, beginning at the extreme left. Board member Ken Lindsay. Next up is Joe Owens of the Football Hall of Fame. Head coach Bill Curry from the University of Kentucky. Assistant coach, go ahead, I'm sorry. Assistant coach Turner Gill from the University of Nebraska. U of L head coach Ron Cooper. Say hello to Sally Berry, if you will, please. And the John Unitas Jr. Raymond Berry, one of the truly great wide receivers in pro football. And Jim Watkins, of course, who you met earlier. Then to my right, Frank Gitcher, who's been so instrumental in the foundation and formation of the chapter here and the Johnny Unitas Award. Next to him, the man whose name they use on the award, John Unitas. This year's winner, quarterback from the University of Nebraska. Welcome, Tommy Frazier. If you sit here and look at this fella next coming up here, you wouldn't realize that this is his dad, but it is. That's Tommy Frazier Sr. and his mother, Priscilla Frazier. They don't look too proud, do they? Not too proud. How about Gene Smith, Vice President of Health South? Is he here? He is. I missed one next to him. To his left, to my left, is Billy Reed. And I'm especially happy to have you here, Billy, because Billy is on the selection committee, and this is the first time that we've been able to get a member of that selection committee, which is from around the country, here for this event. So we're very happy to have Billy with us. Next to him, we'll see Denny Schrecker, who is a board member. On and on we go. Here's Mr. Paul Jones, Vice President of BP Oil. And finally, Bernie Kish, the Director of the College Football Hall of Fame in South Bend, Indiana. Very briefly in the audience tonight, from care tenders John and William Yarmouth, Chris Anderson, Sports Information Director from the University of Nebraska, Tom Burnett, representing TKR Cable, Mike Andrews, who is the Director of Public Relations for the Shriners Crippled Children Hospital in Tampa, Florida. Now, Mike and his TV crew were here today utilizing John Unitas and Raymond Berry as they taped a public service announcement for the Shriners Crippled Children Hospital. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to eat dinner. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I know some of you are still finishing dessert, and we certainly don't want to interrupt that. We have many things to accomplish yet, and we want to make sure you get out of here in time to go to the grocery store because of the big snowstorm. So far, it's not very big. Just prior to the awards tonight, if we could have your attention, we'd like you to meet Mr. Joe Owens. Joe is the Midwest Regional Coordinator for the National Football Foundation and College Hall of Fame. Joe?
Thanks, Jack. It's indeed a privilege for me to represent the National Football Foundation and College Hall of Fame this evening. I'm going to be very, very brief and have a seat because we have a lot of exciting things to accomplish this evening. But first of all, I just want to quickly try to explain the National Football Foundation and Hall of Fame to you. We are a nationwide organization with approximately 100 chapters across the country, about 10,000 members. But I can guarantee you there's no chapter in the country that puts on a banquet like this and gives as much scholarship money as the Louisville, Kentucky chapter does. The purpose of our chapters across the country is to do exactly what we're doing this evening, honoring excellence, young men who've excelled not only in the football field, but in the classroom as well. On the national level, the National Football Foundation does the same thing. Every year at our annual awards dinner in New York City, which will be held next week, we bring in the 18 very best college scholar athletes, provide them with $18,000 for postgraduate work. But the National Football Foundation Hall of Fame is also very pleased to own and operate the College Football Hall of Fame, which is located in South Bend, Indiana. And you will hear more about that brand new facility in just a few minutes. But I do want to tell you the very special thing about that new building, the College Football Hall of Fame, is it also represents excellence. And these young men you see here in front of you this evening, each one of them, their names and their schools and their accomplishments will be on a computer in the College Football Hall of Fame. So if you go there, all you have to do is pull that young man's name up, and you're going to read about him. Because it's young men like this, that's what the National Football Foundation Hall of Fame is all about. But also, you'll see on your tables there are application forms there. I suggest you take one of these, look it over, and I do recommend that you join the National Football Foundation Hall of Fame. As a member of a local chapter, as the Kentucky chapter, you have the right to vote and nominate individuals into the College Football Hall of Fame. But again, it's the young men like we're recognizing this evening that what the National Football Foundation Hall of Fame is all about. So again, thank you very much, and I suggest and recommend highly that you get involved with the Kentucky chapter. Thank you very much.
When Joe Owens says 2 minutes, that's 2 minutes. That was exactly 2 minutes. Perfect. Ironically, our first award of the evening is the First Down Award. And this is presented tonight by John Unitas and Mr. Gene Smith, Senior Vice President of Health South Rehabilitation Corporation.
Two pieces so I don't drop it. I fumbled a lot, but I'm glad I won't do that one. It's a pleasure for me to be here and to present the First Down Award, but I think most of us have to understand that a lot of us who perform year in, year out, week in, week out, as Tommy has over the years, that a lot of it has to do with the ability of coming back from injuries. And that ability to come back from injuries is only due to the fact that the time and effort the doctors and the physical therapists and the trainers put in to get us back onto the playing field. So it gives me a great deal of pleasure to bring to the podium now Mr. Gene Smith to introduce to you the winner of the Johnny Unitas First Down Award. Gene.
Thank you, Johnny. It's a pleasure to be here tonight in Louisville. Of course, being from Birmingham, Alabama, I look to my right here and see Tommy Frazier, and I'm wondering what in the heck was Gene Stallings thinking about when he didn't recruit this young man. Of course, Coach Curry knows about the rabid fans in Alabama quite well, I think, and so I'm going to have to talk with Gene Stallings next time I see him and see why I didn't recruit you. Anytime I get in front of a podium, my wife, or in front of a light, my wife says I can talk about HealthSouth for 5 minutes when I open the refrigerator door and the light comes on. But I can't get up here and talk about a physician without telling about a story about a physician. And there's a few in here, I'm sure. And this story is about a guy that I knew, and he went into the doctor one day, and the doctor says, well, I have some bad news and I have some bad news. The guy says, oh, God. He says, well, what's the bad news? And the doctor says, well, he says, you've been diagnosed with an incurable disease, and it's very rapid acting. There's absolutely nothing we can do about it, and you're going to die. The guy goes, oh, that's awful. He says, well, how long do I have? The doctor says, well, you have 24 hours. He goes, oh, man. He says, well, what could be worse news than that? The doctor says, well, I should have told you yesterday. Anyway, my wife tells me I also have bad jokes. This award basically is given annually to the physician who has displayed exemplary dedication in his profession in the area, in the arena of sports medicine. And this is basically a subspecialty of orthopedics, and it's a very crowded subspecialty. And to gain notoriety in this end of the orthopedic business is really quite an honor. There's a lot of wannabes in this end of the business, and it takes a tremendous amount of dedication, sacrifice, skill, and devotion in order to really reach the top and become recognized in this end of the sports medicine end of things in orthopedics. In fact, we have another guest here tonight, Dr. Loeb, here in Louisville, that has won this award before. And before I present him with this honor, though, let me just tell you a little bit of what it takes to get to this type of position. First of all, it takes about 9 years of education, which is not easy. In fact, you've got to be in the upper percentile of your class even to make it. And then you go from that into a fellowship in it's got to be a very honorable facility that you go and do your fellowship in just in sports medicine. And once you've completed that, then you get out on your own and start practicing. And then you've got to establish yourself not only as a good sports medicine physician, but as a very good orthopedist. And that's not just treating the athletes like Tommy Frazier or some of your high-dollar professional athletes or your really great college or high school athletes. That's treating people like you and like me and your children with the same amount of dedication, care, and professionalism as you would these athletes that you see before you today. So there's a lot more that goes with that. There's putting in your time, just like you put in your time in any profession, but this is a little bit more grueling. You know, there's countless Friday nights on wet football fields. It's standing in the rain while you're looking at a young man's shoulder. It's being in the gym when a young man or a young woman's knee blows out. It's being there Saturday morning in your clinics, providing, free bump and bruise clinics, where it's a service to the community and a service to the high schools. It's all of these things put together and many, many more things. And John Conway has done them all. Dr. Conway is from Fort Worth, Texas, and let me tell you a little bit about him. He graduated from Baylor University in 1979, and then he went on to medical school at the University of Texas in Houston. He did an internal medicine residency internship here in the University of Kentucky. He did an orthopedic internship and residency at John Peter Smith in 1985 and 1989, and he did a sports fellowship training at Kerlan Jobe Clinic, which is a world-renowned sports medicine facility in Los Angeles in 1990. Since then, he's had to get out and then establish his practice. And you have to establish your practice within a community that's extremely competitive and really be an outstanding physician to the community, not only to the athletes as I've described, but as to the total population. So besides that, then, he's worked as the, right now he's at the team physician for the University of Texas in Arlington, and is the team orthopedist for the entire Texas Rangers baseball organization, not just the major league team, but all the minor league teams as well. He's the medical director of the Independent School District of Fort Worth, and is a co-medical director of the Youth Rodeo Coverage Program. He's a diplomat and a fellow in the American Board of Orthopedic Surgery, a fellow in the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons, and is involved in numerous other professions that I could go on to at length here, but time wouldn't permit. He also teaches in numerous orthopedic meetings across the country, has published his research, and continues to elevate the level of sports medicine in this country with his contributions. I've had the privilege of working with John very closely over the last year, and I can tell you from personal experience, not only is one of the best clinicians that I've ever seen in this business, he's also one hell of a nice guy. John Conway.
Congratulations, Doctor. Now it's time to reintroduce our high school Scholar Athlete Award winners. And each of the 26 athletes were selected by the principal, athletic director, and head coach. The award is being based on academics and the player's leadership role in his school and community. These awards will be presented by John Unitas, John Yarmouth of Care Tenders, and Mr. Paul Jones of BP Oil. KP Oil of BP Oil. There you go. Show you exactly what these are like. They get on a plaque and also a certificate. So let's pass these right along. We'll start right out at the top with Stefan Harris. Stefan, of course, is from Atherton High School. Very good. Thank you. The next from Ballard High School, Adam Vall. Turn around and smile, Adam. Very good. From Butler High School, Matthew Vise. Central's Jermaine Bradley. Dominic Oliverio from DeSales High School. Josh Frith from Doss High School. Next, from Eastern High School, Fred Reese IV. They get 3 different things here, so make sure they pick them all up before they walk off that stage. From Fairdale High School, Mike Brown. From Fern Creek High School, Doug Schneider. This is more your size right here, John. From Holy Cross, Brian Dews. Thomas Ashby represents Iroquois High School. J-Town High School, Mitch Netter. We would remind you again, while we're getting a couple things straightened out here, this program will be replayed on next Wednesday, December 13th at 8 p.m. on TKR Cable Channel 8. And later, in another part of the program, too. That's the commercial. Unless you'd like to buy some extra time. From Mayo High School, John Stammerman. From Manual High School, Greg Schartzer. Next is James Frank from Moore High School. I bet it's snowing out in Oldham County, but Bo Guest says he doesn't care. He's from Oldham County High School. Bo? Sound like he was doing some politicking before this thing started. That's right. From Pleasure Ridge Park, Brian Moore. Seneca High School presents William Hammond. while I block you out there, John. You ever think of elevator shoes, John? From Shawnee High School, Andre Blasingame. St. Xavier says after Shawnee. Now from St. Xavier, Tendai Charasika. I got it right this time, Tendai. From South Oldham, John Thompson. Southern High School, Billy Jones. From Trinity High School, Jeff Ralston. Valley High School, Chris Farrell. From Wagner High School, Aaron Robinson. And from Western High School, Kenny Kurtz, Jr. Now, if I may, I'd like for the parents and the coaches for these young men, please stand in the audience. Let's give them all a nice round of applause. Our next award is to be presented by the Kentucky chapter of the College Hall of Fame. It's the Frank Camp Award. Would you please welcome a member of our board of directors, Denny Schrecker. Denny?
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to introduce our next award, the Coach Frank Camp Award, which is presented to the outstanding football player in the state of Kentucky. This year, I might say, before I introduce Mrs. Camp to present this award, I'd like to say a little something about this young man. Everyone's read about him in the newspaper. He may be the best athlete in the state, not just the best football player. He averaged 37 points a game in basketball last year, led the state of Kentucky. Listen to this, quarterbacks. He has a total career touchdowns of 133, which is a national record. He was awarded the Gatorade National Player of the Year Award just yesterday. He completed 865 passes in his career for 12,091 yards. It's my pleasure to introduce to you Nancy Camp, Coach Camp's wife, and for her to say a few words before we bring Tim Couch up. Nancy?
Well, first of all, I would like to say how honored our family is to have this award named for Frank. We feel that this award is appropriate because Frank coached Kentucky high schools in Hodgenville, Glasgow, anyone from Glasgow, and Henderson, Kentucky, before becoming head coach at the University of Louisville in 1946. It is my pleasure and my privilege tonight to present the Frank Camp Award to the best high school football player in the state of Kentucky. And this young man is Tim Couch of Leslie County. And would he come forward, please?
First of all, let me just say I'm very honored to be here tonight, and I just want to say thanks to everyone that made this possible, such as my teammates, my coaching staff, and just everyone that's been following me throughout my career. And I just want to say a special thanks to you all, and I'm not going to start getting into all those names because there's so many people that's been responsible for my success in my career, and I just want to say thanks to you all, and I really appreciate it. Thanks.
There'll be a duplicate award, just like Tim received, presented to his high school in Leslie County for their showing off, you know what I mean? And a $1,000 scholarship besides that. Not bad. John, I just happened to think, I wonder if he wears low cuts.
No, I don't.
Oh, does he? Okay. All the fast guys wear. Yeah. Oh, heck. Well, anyway. I'm very happy tonight to welcome, for his first College Football Hall of Fame banquet, the head coach, University of Louisville. Please welcome Ron Cooper.
Thank you. Definitely indeed an honor to be here tonight. And first of all, I'd just like to say congratulations to all the high school Scholar Athlete Award winners, and also to Tommy Frazier, who had a great career. Congratulations on winning this most prestigious award. And it seems like just a few years ago I was trying to recruit Tommy to come play for us at the University of Notre Dame, but he made a decision to go to the University of Nebraska and has had a great career. I'm up here tonight to give out the U of L Walk-On Award winner. Let me tell you a little bit about Matt Conway. Matt Conway came to the University of Louisville a couple of years ago as a walk-on, redshirted his first year. This year he played in every football game. He was a backup defensive tackle for us. He also, starting next semester, will have earned a full football scholarship. The winner of tonight of the U of L Walk-On Award winner, Matt Conway.
From the University of Kentucky, their head football coach, and I'm really glad he made it tonight. They were a little bit worried about the weather, but here is Coach Bill Curry.
Thank you very much. It is one of my favorite times of the year, and this is one of my favorite functions to attend for reasons that I'll get to in just a moment. But I also want to congratulate all you wonderful young men for what you've accomplished. Let this be a start rather than a finish. I couldn't help but reflect, because of the kind of award that I'm privileged to present tonight, on my first year with the Baltimore Colts, and the fact that I get to see John every year at this time is something that I can hardly wait for, and I mean that sincerely. And I had no idea that Raymond and Sally would be here, but just to have been on the field with John Unitas and Raymond Berry is something that I can't describe, but it was an incredible privilege. And thinking about our walk-on winner for tonight reminded me of those Don Shula practices. And we practiced like college teams. We didn't practice like NFL. Cool, laid back, short, easy practices. We stayed out there 2.5 hours in the morning and 2.5 hours in the afternoon, and it was about 100 degrees in Westminster, Maryland. And all my life, because as I've said every year over here, Johnny was my childhood hero. And Raymond was Johnny's childhood hero. So it's me stepping in the huddle like stepping in the huddle with Mount Rushmore. These guys are already guaranteed the Hall of Fame. But I learned something about work that I had never seen before, and I've seen very seldom since. 5 hours of grueling, smashing, hard-nosed football, both practices in pads. 14 pounds of dehydration most days is what we'd lose. After practice, I always resented the fact that I had to stay because I was the long snapper. I had to snap to the punter, and I had to snap to the holder for the place kicker after everybody else had already done their conditioning and gone in. So I had another half hour when everybody else was through. But I would stay and do my stuff, and then I had to do my gassers, and we had to run 4 sets of gassers. I would finish my gassers. This is a fact. I'd trudge up that hill to the locker room at Westminster, Maryland, go in, take a shower, get dressed, walk back out, and John and Raymond are still throwing out cuts down on the practice field. And that, young people, is how you make the Hall of Fame. There are a lot of people who talk about perseverance. There are very few that understand it. Perseverance means forever. We try to teach that in our program. There are very few players who understand it early in their careers, but excellent walk-ons do. Carl Daly has been with us as a fullback and a special teams player, and on a daily basis he has given and given and given, and particularly in the face of very little visible reward. I admire those players that do that on the scout team and the special teams more than any of the rest of us. And that's why it's such a privilege to be here. And I apologize for having to leave early, but I do have to get back to Lexington, and there's some question about that, but I have a 4-wheel drive vehicle to do that. Carl was the equivalent of a 4-wheel drive vehicle for us every day. Whatever we asked him to do, he did it without complaining, at least not where I could hear it, which means he's really smart. Carl is going to be successful at anything that he does in this world because he brought the great work ethic of his high school program when he came. We didn't have to teach him that. And we love you, Carl, and we appreciate every minute you gave us, and we're going to miss you very, very much. I'd like to present Carl Daly, the outstanding walk-on for the University of Kentucky, 1995.
You know John Unitas. I want you to meet John Unitas Jr. Would you come up, John?
Thank you, everyone, and we appreciate you coming out this evening. This next individual is a special man to me and our family. In his 13-year playing career with the Baltimore Colts, he was a member of 2 World Championship teams, along with my father, formed one of NFL's top quarterback-receiver combinations. Their greatest day together, I guess, amongst others, was the famous sudden death overtime game when Baltimore defeated the New York Giants for the World Championship in 1958. In NFL history, it is called the greatest game ever played. When he retired, he was the NFL's all-time leading receiver. 5 years later, he was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. In his 6 seasons as head coach of the New England Patriots, he led his team to the highest winning percentage in 5 playoff games, including the Super Bowl. During those years, they faced the Miami Dolphins and Don Shula. And I must say that I'm happy to hear that out of NFL's all-time winningest coach, Don Shula, 11 times, Raymond Berry and the Patriots beat him 8. In 1985, Berry was selected NFL Coach of the Year by the Vince Lombardi Committee. And in 1994, he was selected to the NFL's all-time team covering the first 75 years of pro football, along with my father. Don Hutson, Raymond Berry, Lance Allworth, and Jerry Rice were the 4 wide receivers honored for this team. Now I'd like to take a look at some of the following film of Raymond Berry, which highlights his career. Virgil?
Raymond Berry was the first man to make a science out of catching the football. Together with quarterback John Unitas, he introduced the era of precision passing.
You know, Ray Berry had bad eyes, he had a short leg, he was slow, but he was probably the most intense and hardest working man in the NFL.
He was a homemade football player. He made himself into a football player on total drive, on intensity, on a desire to make it. Raymond had gone to SMU, and Colts, when they drafted him, thought of him as a defensive end. Imagine Raymond Berry, 182 pounds as a defensive end.
Raymond Berry came to the Colts without an abundance of ability, yet went on to become, with the cooperation of the game's greatest quarterback, one of the finest receivers in the history of pro football. As a pair, Unitas to Berry were to the Colts what Gable was to Lombard in the movies, and what Jagger is to Richards in the Rolling Stones. The source of Berry's success was lodged in dedication, hard work, and an obsession with detail that bordered on the fanatic.
When he went on the road, he insisted on taking his own private scale with him because he was fearful that the scales in California and in Chicago wouldn't give him an honest reading. And he always wanted to play at 182 pounds. He didn't want to play at 183. So he knew that if he carried his own scale with him, that he would get an accurate reading. So he carried his own scale.
Ray Berry was an eccentric, and there was madness to his method. But it helped him become a 3-time All-Pro and drove him to the Hall of Fame. His achievements were a triumph for a common man, a fact not lost on his teammates.
The longer he stayed around and the unbelievable catches that he started to make, the football players, the old clique and the old heads and the established veterans suddenly started to accept him because they found out he could play.
I think the one guy Raymond would want to punch would have been me, because I used to use his hairbrush all the time. The comb was there, and then his towel, and he had his back brace hanging up that he'd washed, and his underwear, and I used to go and use the hairbrush and turn it around the other way so he knew I'd use it. And he'd come up to me, look at me. He'd say, "Arthur, I wish you wouldn't use my hair." I said, "Raymond, I'll never do it again." Do the same thing the next day. So then he got to the point that if I didn't do it, he'd be looking forward for me using his hairbrush.
He was a slave to routine and incessant practice. This ensured his accomplishments, but it also made it harder for him to tolerate failure.
and I didn't like to drop a ball. It really irritated me. He'd practice hour after hour diving into a net under the goal post, and he once said that luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity, and I must be prepared to make my own luck.
Practice makes perfect, and Ray Berry became the perfect receiver.
It gradually began to become clear that there are a certain number of types of catches. The short ball, there's about 12, and on the long ball, there's about 6. And so basically that became the drill, that just constantly working on those 18 basically type of catches over and over and over. 2, 3, 4 of each type every day, catching 7,500 balls a day.
Berry orchestrated every step in practice until it became pure reflex in a game. He was like an Arthur Murray dance student who enters a klutz and graduates in a stare. He didn't smoke, didn't drink, and like the cowboy who never shot first, he played a clean game on the field and off it.
He's a kind of an individual that, you know, all of us that know locker room language, we've been in the service and we use all the 4-letter words that were ever invented. When Raymond came around, most of the players cleaned up their vocabulary out of respect to Raymond Berry. It was almost like he was a member of the clergy.
In 1958, pro football became a religion. Television brought to the masses what was called the greatest game ever played, as the Colts defeated the Giants in sudden death for the NFL championship. When pro football moved to center stage, the game became the centerpiece in the magnificent career of Raymond Berry. When he left pro football, he left it as a remarkable player and a remarkable man.
He was yards apart from any other athlete that you'd ever want to meet. Just a tremendous credit to humanity, and it makes you pleased to know that in your lifetime you've had an opportunity to know a man like Raymond Berry, who has given most all of the good qualities that God wants man to have, and very few of its weaknesses.
Now to present the Distinguished American Award, Mr. Bernie Kish from South Bend, Indiana, not the home of Notre Dame, but the home of the College Football Hall of Fame. Bernie.
The highest award that a local NFF's chapter can present is the Distinguished American Award. The criteria for the award is simple. The individual has had to be affiliated with football, and he has had to distinguish himself as a patriot by his devotion to humanity and by his unselfish dedication to his community and to his country. It is my honor to present the Kentucky Chapter Distinguished American Award to number 82, the uncomparable, Raymond Berry.
Bernie, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I would like to make an acknowledgement here. Sally, would you please stand up here? This is my wife, Sally. The guy ended that little introduction there on the screen a while ago about, he said something about all the strengths and not many of the weaknesses. I hope Sally doesn't talk tonight. I got these people fooled pretty good. But anyway, another acknowledgement I'd like to make at this point. At some point, here a few years ago, it began to dawn on me that one of the reasons why I've had so much fun in the game of football for so many years is because of the fans. They're the ones that create the whole opportunity for us to play, whether we're in high school or college or professional. It just so happens I was fortunate to get to play all of them. And at some point, and I got into professional football, I began to realize that one reason I had that opportunity is because, well, in this room tonight, there is a room full of the people who are responsible for me getting to play. I'd just like to say thank you on behalf of all of us, some of us who know about it and some of us who don't. You people are responsible. I'd also like to just mention a word about Tommy Frazier. 1995 has been a big year for him and winding down to one of the great games I'm sure that's going to ever be played in college football. But I would say this about 1995. Tommy's going to have a hard act to follow trying to beat his act on January the 1st, 1995. Because like many of you, I watched that national championship square off with Nebraska, beats Miami last year. I was sitting in my room pulling for Nebraska. And one of the biggest thrills I've had in the last 10 years to see Tommy do what he did to bring Nebraska that national championship. And with that type of background and experience and performance, I think Nebraska is looking forward to maybe two of them within almost 366 days, I believe. But Tommy, as I thought about other things I wanted to acknowledge, I thought about this. We've got a room full of football fans and a room full of football players from every level. And my dad was a Texas high school football coach. I grew up around the game. And the thing that I have only fully begun to appreciate just in, the last 10 years, and don't ask me why it's taken me this long to understand, maybe I was too close to the trees to know what was going on. But the game of football, was a whole lot more than entertainment. And I think in its finest contribution to the United States of America, it's at the junior high school level, because I don't really know where there is in our society today where you can get the values that are there in such a team sport, a contact sport as football. And some of the things that this game does are so, well, everybody I think just takes it for granted, because I just wrote down a few words and I'm thinking, even as you talk about it, people say, oh yeah, I've heard that before, but I want to say them again because I just appreciate it more than I ever have. But where in the world can you find an experience for young men to build character in ways that it's constantly. And then you got teamwork, ability to overcome all types of struggles, obstacles, adversities, setbacks, disappointments. There's sacrifice involved in this game. There's dedication. There is the part of this game that begins to develop a young man's confidence in his self-esteem, his appreciation of other human beings. There's a fighting spirit that comes out of being with his football, and in its best state, a real spirit of unselfishness. And, I talked about Tommy Frazier and just watching him play in that game. But, the night I watched him play there, it also is an example of one other thing this game is a part of the game, and that is the inspirational factor. Because I was aware of what had gone on in his season prior to that game down in the Orange Bowl last year. And, it's just an automatic thing that you watch an athlete like this with a story like this, that it is inspirational. And I just thought it appropriate to mention this about the great game of football and how we all benefit from it. The last part of what I'd like to talk about is Johnny U. I'm not exactly sure when this happened either, but at some point in my life, I began to realize that people who are in your lives have everything to do with what your life ends up being like. And as I looked at every path that I had been down, and I began to make a little list. You know, and I had a great home with my father and mother, and I've had a great wife, and she's been a player's wife and a coach's wife, and believe me, there's not any tougher requirements on the face of the earth than to be a coach's wife. And after my parents and my wife, right at the top of the list of people who mean the most to me in my life is John Unitas. And get this picture. You know, I come out of college, you know, I got vision about 1/4 inch in front of my nose as to where life is all about, because I am totally involved in playing the game of football. That's what I love to do. I happened to be gifted with a great pair of hands. I could catch the football. And I got a chance to play in professional football. And can you imagine, if you really stop to think about it, ending up with an opportunity to play and do something you really love to do, exercising the gift you have, and you end up getting to do it with a guy who's got one of the greatest gifts with throwing the ball that's ever been in the history of the game. And I ended up getting to play 12 years with this guy. Without question, it was, in my opinion, the greatest arrangement ever made in professional football, and I cashed in on it. Some of you young guys sitting in here, whether you have interest in sports, arts, business, or wherever it might be, at your age level where you are right now, just to give you a little insight as to the realities and what might be up the road and what you can expect. When John and I came into professional football, he was from the University of Louisville, of course, out of Pittsburgh. I came out of Southern Methodist University in the state of Texas. And after 1 year in professional football, I was slated to be replaced. I really knew nothing about being a pro receiver. John had gone to Pittsburgh, and he was replaced. He was cut with the Pittsburgh Steelers, but he got a big salary with some semi-pro team up there, about $25 a game, his first year. So his rookie year and my rookie year were, needless to say, we were not creating a tremendous amount of interest. And so I came back for my second year with Baltimore, and John was signed as a free agent. It cost him at least a 90-cent phone call to get him on a contract. And so we ended up our second year in pro football. I'm a 20th round draft choice out of SMU, and he's a free agent. And that's how we started off our pro career. And we were very fortunate, and we had a head coach there that was named Weeb Eubank, and one of his strongest qualities was the ability to recognize talent in unknowns. And brother, we qualified. We were unknown, but Weeb saw something in both of us. And John may not even know this, but he reported about a week before I did that year, because I, of course, was a big vet. You know, I was coming back from my second year, and I remember watching that first practice with him down there on the practice field and asked who that was, and they said, "Oh, no, some kid they signed, but he looks pretty good." And when summer training camp got started that year, our head coach, I noticed as I look back on it later that our head coach kept telling me, work with this guy, work with this guy. And you see, the fact of the matter is that our coach, Weeb Eubank, already recognized that it wasn't going to be long before John was going to be playing. And so we went into the season, we went halfway through our season that year, and I want to tell you one of my favorite John Unitas stories, because it has to do with his first completed pass in pro football. Our quarterback, George Shaw, got a severe knee injury against the Bears in Chicago. And John came off the bench in mid-season to play his really first official NFL game. And I was there that day. I was in the huddle. I saw it all. And I don't remember exactly what stage the game was, but I remember he called a pass or two. I think it was incompletion. And then he fired one in the right flat, completed it for a 56-yard touchdown to J.C. Caroline, who was a Chicago Bear defensive back, who went that way. And I'm not telling that story, you know, except for one reason, because what it really revealed is what the great strength, in my opinion, this guy had, and why he ended up staying around 18 years playing. is the mental toughness part of it, because he threw one to J.C., who made a beautiful run. But I was in the huddle that day, and you know, it's characteristic of John Unitas exactly how much that threw him off his game. It didn't. He just went right back to work, doing just exactly what he was born to do. And before the day was over, had a very decent day. It never, it did not affect him that way, but it showed you why later on he was to be such a tremendous quarterback. Of course, the physical part of the game is one thing, the mental part of it is another, and you got to have both in order to make it work. The high point of our entire 13 years of playing was a game that's already been mentioned here tonight, and it was our first World Championship game. And I don't care if it's in junior high, high school, college, or where, your first championship is going to be something you will never forget, and I'll guarantee you we've never forgotten this one. But it was probably one of our best days together. And this past year, I was asked to put down in writing my recollections of this experience, and I did not know I was going to speak here tonight, but I got to thinking, you know, I think I'll just read some of the things that I wrote in focusing in on this game, because it has something to say about one of the greatest experiences we ever had, and also something about John. But this is where it begins here. And when the day began on December 28, 1958, none of us could have imagined that we were going to be involved in a game that was going to make history. All we knew was that this game was the climax of a long, hard-fought season for both the Baltimore Colts and the New York Giants, and that the World Championship was a prize at stake. No one had any way of knowing that the game was going to end up with a heart-stopping 2-minute drive to tie the game as the clock ran out. And certainly no one could have foreseen the first overtime sudden death game in the history of the NFL. In later years, knowledgeable observers of professional football would call this game the turning point, the event that launched the NFL into a new era. It would be called the game that made the game. Within a day or so, coverage referred to it as the greatest game ever played. Those of us who took part would have our doubts about that, since the game was going to be dominated by two great defenses most of the afternoon. What none of us were going to understand until much later was the big picture, the effect on the viewing public, the fans who in the final analysis make pro football. There would be 40 million in the television audience, with millions more tuned in on radio. After the game, and later on a comment by Commissioner Pete Rozelle, he said, "I still think the biggest game we ever had in the league was the Colts win over the Giants. I think that was the first, that game that got television coverage across America. It reached fans who had never seen pro football before." It would be years later before the television and radio audiences would fully understand one reason the game was going to be one of their all-time memories. Among the players and coaches in this game, 15 would eventually occupy places in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. In short, there was a lot of talent out there getting ready to create a classic. And by the way, the New York Giant coaching staff, you might be interested in knowing, the coach in charge of their offense was Tom Landry, and was Vince Lombardi, and the coach in charge of their defense was Tom Landry. Coach Jim Lee Howe, smartest coach in America, he had Tom Landry and Vince Lombardi and turned them loose. Yes, it was going to be a history-making game of great significance for professional football, but those of us getting ready to play were not thinking about that when the day began. We were just glad to be there. Of course, none of us had any appreciation of history. We were just out there to play. This is what I also wrote about John. The day's events would also introduce the pro football world a quarterback who was going to make history in the same way as this game. John Unitas would be in every discussion from this day on about who's the greatest quarterback. And of course, fans like to talk about all that. I don't think anyone would argue that in the years to come he was going to win most of those debates. There would be no debate about one thing. He was going to be the difference in this game. The frame of mind of our team was confident. When the 1958 season began, we had been expecting to be good. Most of us had been together for 4 years. When the previous season ended, we all realized we should have gone all the way that year. So when we returned for 58, we were expecting to win. And that brings me to our quarterback. In order to win in pro football, you've got to have a quarterback who has a habit of completed forward passes and completing them at a very high rate of success. You've got to have a quarterback who, when a receiver gets open, gets the ball to him. To win in the intense competition of the NFL, the quarterback can't afford many misses. And it helps to have a quarterback who on occasion can thread the ball in there when the receiver's not open. I had that experience a lot, so I know what that means. At all times, you need a quarterback able to tune out the pass rush and the physical beating and keep on coming. The main reason our team believed it could win was because we had a quarterback like this in John Unitas. John brought more to this job than accurate passing. He also inspired us with his mental attitude. It was obvious he wasn't impressed with the recognition and the notoriety. He had come up the hard way. Unheralded out of the University of Louisville, drafted by the Steelers, cut, played for $25 a game. He was signed as a free agent by the Colts. He was not exactly born with a silver spoon in his mouth. He wasn't into records. What he had on his mind was putting the ball in the end zone, using whomever and whatever was available to him. In the final minutes of the game coming up, that mindset would become very evident. I've never seen a greater competitor. He was a man gifted in every way to be a quarterback. Arm, brains, heart, instinct. You name it, he had it. He also was not easily discouraged. I doubt he was ever beaten mentally. Before the day was over, those traits were going to come in handy. Because you see in that game that day, we jumped out to a 14-3 lead early in the game. And then the New York Giant defense, who had led the National Football League, started doing their thing. And for the next, well, down to the last 2 minutes of the ball game, we ended up behind a football team we should have already blown off the field. And we went into the final 2 minutes behind 17-14. And that's when John took over in a 2-minute drive and drove us down to tie the ball game with 7 seconds left. We went into sudden death. We got the ball back, and he drove us 80 yards to win the ball game. That's John Unitas, and football's fun, ain't it? Okay.
This seems to be a night for quarterbacks. Coach Tom Osborne from Nebraska couldn't be with us, but when they said that assistant coach Turner Gill would be here, I thought, that rings a bell. And I looked back and I said, it sure as hell does. The guy was 28-2 as the quarterback at Nebraska from 81 to 1983. 28-2 overall, 20-0 in the conference, 3 conference champions. How about a big welcome for Coach Turner Gill?
Say it's a pleasure for me to be here, and I want to definitely say a little note from Coach Osborne. Apologize for not being here, but of course you all know that we're kind of getting ready for the Florida Gators, and he decided to stay there and get some of those things done. He decided to send me here. So I also want to say congratulations to all the high school student athletes being winners, both as a student and an athlete. And remember, keep that in the right perspective. You have a lot of things going to be good for you in the future. Also, I'd like to thank National Football Foundation here at the college football. Thank all the sponsors for putting on such a great banquet. And it's a great pleasure for me to be here. This is a very special night. I also want to thank Tommy Frazier's parents for letting him decide on going to the University of Nebraska, because this made me a better coach, I promise you. Well, I want to talk just a little bit about Tommy Frazier. I am his quarterback coach, and so we've been through a lot, good and bad, but a lot of it definitely has been good. I can tell you that for sure. I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story, and you may not want me to share it with you, but I'm going to share it anyway. But there was one point when he came on the campus as a freshman, I really knew that he was special. There was no question about it, not only as an athlete, but as a person. That was probably about I think it was the 3rd or 4th game of the season. And he was our backup quarterback at the time. He really hadn't played any snaps at all. And then one day, we were having a meetings, and he decided to come in the office, and he said, I need to talk, Coach. Yeah, so me and Coach Osborne went into Coach Osborne's office. He sat down, and tears started coming down his eyes. You know, we kind of wondered, what's going on here? Well, he comes in there, and he says, Coach, I want to leave. I don't want to play football anymore. You know, that's shocking news to us as coaches. He comes in there, and we sit down and just got to talking about it and seeing what was going on. And, of course, a lot of it, I think, has to do with a lot of us being homesick. Another reason why he wasn't playing. But there were so many things that were going on in his mind. As we all know, as young people, when you're 17, 18 years old, you decide to go to a university, and a lot of things are happening in your mind, school, social life, football, and all those things. And all those things came about on him. And we just sit down and talked it out, and just told him just to hang in there, and we're going to pray about some things, and things are going to work out. And
As we all know, fortunate enough, everything has worked out very, very well, and you know, those things happen in college. Those things happen in high school, and I know that I've been there in support for Tommy through the thick and thin, and he's been through a lot as a student athlete, and through all the injuries he's had, and he's been through a lot of perseverance, and I appreciate all the things that he's done. The other side of him, just outside of football, is he's going to graduate here in 4 years. He'll graduate in May. That means a lot to me, and I know it means an awful lot to his parents. That's special. He's majoring in communications, and I think he wants to eventually, hopefully, get into the TV side of things. Who knows? Maybe one day we might see him out there like Lee Corso or something and take his place. But you know, Tommy's a special person, and I really appreciate him. But another little side of just some other things about him is about his athletic ability. He's a man that is really, really what you want in a student athlete. There's no question about it. His athletic ability is outstanding. He came in as a person who was dedicated. He paid attention in the meetings. He goes to classes consistently. Has done very, very well in the classroom. And he's a guy who is a team player. Not only does he a very intense type player, he's a guy who very, very well concentrates in practice. You see a lot of us can be intense in games, but he can also be intense in practice. He's a guy who works very hard. You see him in practice, he's intense. He gets on our players and the offensive line and all that, and he keeps everything going. He's very dedicated in what he wants to do. He wants to be good in everything he does. On the football field, also in the classroom. He's a classic example of it, and I'm just very proud to be a part of it and to see his future go. Hopefully he has an opportunity to go on and play at the next level, but if he doesn't, I know he's going to be a great example in our society here in the United States of America, and I know he's special in many, many, many ways. There's something I also want to touch base on. All of you out there as student athletes in high school, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, that you guys here have started something, that you won this award tonight. And I know as myself as a coach, I know there's a lot of you out there as businessmen, businesswomen, and out there as employees. And I know that all of us are looking for people who are finishers. So you started something in high school. If you had that opportunity to go ahead and go play college, or you decide to go and get a job or whatever, we're always looking for somebody who can finish, because that tells us something about you as an individual. Just like when you get a high school degree, you started something, you finish it, that shows something to us. You go to college, you get a degree there, you started, if you finish it, that shows us something. And that's what employees are looking for when they're looking for somebody to have a job opportunity. And that's also what we're looking for when we're just trying to decide on college athletes to come to our universities. And that's something I want to leave with you. I thank you for this opportunity, and may God bless you all. Thank you.
Now for the Johnny Unitas Golden Arm Award, here are John Unitas, John Yarmouth, and Gene Smith. And guess who the winner is?
Thank you very much. It's a real pleasure, of course, for me to be here as usual every year. You probably get tired of hearing me say the same things up here. The Kitcher hasn't taught me how to speak yet, so I'm still working for that. And I'd like to thank all of you for coming on this evening. It's even such a bad night out there, but we certainly appreciate the attendance. Thank you to the sponsors who have footed the bill for this awards banquet over the years. Without these people, we certainly couldn't put this on. Gitcher's Group, who worked hard throughout the whole year, deserve a tremendous hand. And it's something that takes an awful lot of hard work to do. And for Bill Curry, who has seemed to leave, Bill, I'm just going to say it wasn't that we had to stay out on the practice field. I just wasn't smart enough to know what Raymond was going to do, so we had to work and work and work. And that's the only way I got things done, through definite repetition. And you're talking about practice, and my son, Chad, who's 16, is a pretty talented young man, and he's talented in golf. And so I constantly am on him to get him to go to the golf course and practice. I said, Chad, get up there and practice. Don't you know that practice makes perfect? He says, Pop. I said, what do you mean? He says, it's perfect practice makes perfect. So you're never too old to learn something, some of these kids. But at this time, we'd like to talk about bringing up a young man who the selection committee did a tremendous job on, selecting Tommy Frazier to win the Johnny Unitas Golden Arm Award. He's done a tremendous job in his 4 years at Nebraska, and we're looking forward to seeing him, of course, in the Fiesta Bowl. I guess it's a Fiesta Bowl, right? Playing against Florida, and he's going to do a good job there. But before we do that, we'd like to have you folks look at some of the Tommy's video.
The nominees for the 1995 Johnny Unitas Golden Arm Award are Nebraska's Tommy Frazier, Virginia's Mike Groh, Ohio State's Bobby Hoying, Florida State's Danny Cannell, and South Carolina's Steve Tannehill. And the winner of the 1995 Johnny Unitas Golden Arm Award is Nebraska's Tommy Frazier. Tommy Frazier has guided the Cornhuskers to a 32-3 record as their starting quarterback. He has produced career numbers of 5,476 yards in total offense with 79 touchdowns. He completed 232 of 469 passes for 3,521 yards and 43 touchdowns with only 11 career interceptions.
Is that it? That's all the video we have of Tommy's. I'd like to call Tommy up at this time to receive the Johnny Unitas ring and the trophy. And he's going to have to be lifting weights to carry this trophy home, Tommy. Here's the ring.
First of all, I'd like to thank the man above, Jesus Christ himself, for making everything possible. Next, I would like to thank the Kentucky chapter of the National Football Foundation, the Johnny Unitas Committee, and Mr. Johnny Unitas himself for making this possible and making me the recipient of this award. Next, I would like to thank the two most important people in my life, my mother and father, Priscilla and Tommy Frazier Sr., for giving me. Without those two for giving me the guidance, support, and self-confidence in myself and my abilities, I don't think I would be here today accepting this award. Next, I would like to thank Coach Osborne and Coach Gill for trusting in me and giving me the ball as a freshman to go out there to lead their team. And last but not least, I would like to thank my teammates. Without them, I don't think anything that I've accomplished in my 4 years at Nebraska would have been possible. And I want to leave a little short message for the guys who plan on going to college and for the younger guys that if you want to be successful, set a dream, set a goal. And like they always say, if you're going to start something, make sure you finish it. Thank you.
Earl, could you get a good picture of Tommy and his mother and dad?
Father's got the ring already.
How about a nice picture of Tommy and his mom and dad, okay? I may sell those for myself, you know that? You know, before I heard Tommy talk, I was going to say something about John Unitas that William Shakespeare might have said. A quarterback by any other name than John Unitas is just a quarterback. But I think Tommy Frazier is going to be pretty damn good. For concluding remarks tonight, Frank Gitcher. Frank?
I don't know whether this committee is trying to tell me something, but 10 years ago, I was at the top of the program. I want to take this opportunity to have everybody from St. X stand up. Coach Glazer, thank you. Stand up, please, for bringing the state championship to Jefferson County, Kentucky. Great job, Mike. Thank you. We have a young lady that helps us every year. We acknowledge her every year because she deserves to be acknowledged. She handles our ticket sales and seating at the tables and is a very diligent, hard-working young lady. Would you stand up, Missy? Missy Larmer, please. Thanks, Missy. Bernie Kish didn't get a chance to tell you, but I think this is what he would have said. If you join the Football Foundation by filling out one of those applications, you can go to South Bend, Indiana, and get a free tour of the new Football College Hall of Fame, which has there in that building a lot of information about John Unitas. You punch it up, and about all you young fellows who over the years, Jim Watkins has furnished the names of all our previous winners. And if you like what we're doing here, fill out the form. Everybody, groups, coaches, booster clubs, come on and help us make this even bigger and better. We have a first tonight, too. We want to welcome the Oldham County people. They participated before, but now they're in here, and we're glad to have you. If you please, and I say this every year, but I want to do it, please look at the back of your program, please, right now, because the first sponsor we've ever had was Care Tenders, and Care Tenders recruited Health South, and then John Unitas and John Jr. recruited Merck, and some of us local folks have recruited BP, KP, BP Oil, which is a new one this year, and TKR Cable. And all the other people listed on that page are contributors, significant contributors. So when your needs are such, please look at those people and say thank you to them for helping us put on this event. One of the names not mentioned there is Hilrick and Bradsby. They make these very specialized bats that we give to our visitors, and Batman takes care of that for us, and Hilrick and Bradsby's name should be on there. I'll take the responsibility for it not being on there, but they have been a contributor like many of the other people on that page. So we want to thank them very, very much. Most of these folks, particularly the ones that you're very interested in, maybe of having autographs. They will be up here afterwards. That's a part of the game. They understand that. They understand why you're here. So they're willing to stay here and take care of your needs in that regard. Tommy, you're not going to be the first young man that's ever left here and won the Heisman Trophy, but you're going to be the next one. Tomorrow morning at 6:40 a.m., all these folks from Nebraska are going to get on an airplane and go to the city I really love. But there's where it is, the Big Apple, and think about us when you're up there, because we'll be thinking about you and rooting for you. And so now let's pause for a minute, as we did when we started, to thank God for all that He has done for all of us. And may God continue to bless America. Thank you, and good night.